The forgotten purpose of the Vedas. What nobody talks about. There is a strange silence surrounding the Vedas today. They are quoted. They are praised. They are ritualized. They are defended, but they are rarely understood. Because the true purpose of the Vedas was never meant to fit comfortably inside temples, traditions, or belief systems. In fact, the original purpose of the Vedas is something so radical, so unsettling, that most civilizations, including modern Hindu society, unconsciously moved away from it. Not because it was wrong, but because it was too confronting. The Vedas were not written to create followers. This is the first truth that shocks most people. The Vedas were never meant to create believers. They were never designed to build religions. They were never written to establish moral authority. If that had been their goal, they would have been simple, clear, command-driven. Instead, they are layered, paradoxical, symbolic, and often confusing. Why? Because the Vedas were not designed to instruct humanity. They were designed to dismantle the illusions that keep humans unconscious, and that is a far more dangerous mission. The lost question the Vedas were answering modern humanity asks, how do I live better? How do I succeed? How do I become happy? The Vedas were asking a much deeper question. What is real and what is merely assumed? Everything in the Vedas revolves around this single inquiry. Not morality, not heaven, not sin. Reality. What exists before belief? What remains when identity dissolves? What continues when thought stops? The Vedas were not interested in improving life. They were interested in understanding existence itself. Why the Vedas were never meant for the masses. The forgotten purpose, liberation from psychological conditioning. The real purpose of the Vedas was not worship. It was deconditioning. Human beings are born into layers of conditioning, cultural identity, social expectation, fear-based morality, inherited belief systems. The Vedas recognized something profound. A conditioned mind cannot perceive truth. So the entire Vedic system was designed to slowly dismantle conditioning, not replace it with new beliefs, but remove the need for belief altogether. This is why the Vedas feel so abstract. They are not teaching what to think. They are teaching how to stop thinking incorrectly. Why the Vedas avoid clear conclusions. Most religious texts give answers. The Vedas give questions, and often they give contradictory ones. This was intentional, because a mind that clings to conclusions stops observing. The Vedas wanted seekers, not followers. That is why you will find verses that seem to cancel each other out. Not because the seers were confused, but because they were preventing intellectual stagnation. Truth to them was not a statement. It was a state of perception. The Vedas as a technology of awareness. This is what almost nobody talks about. The Vedas are not philosophy. They are not theology. They are technologies of awareness. Every mantra, every ritual, every symbol, every silence. All of it was designed to alter perception, not emotionally, not psychologically, but fundamentally. Just as modern technology reshapes external reality, the Vedas were designed to reshape internal reality. They worked on attention, perception, identity, awareness, consciousness, long before neuroscience had language for it. Why sound was more important than meaning. One of the strangest aspects of the Vedas is their obsession with sound, mantras, chants, precise pronunciation, exact tonal repetition. Why? Because sound bypasses the intellect. It goes directly into the nervous system. The Vedic seers understood something modern science is rediscovering. Vibration shapes consciousness. Meaning can be debated, sound cannot. This is why the Vedas were transmitted orally for centuries. Writing would have diluted their power. They were meant to be experienced, not studied. The Vedas were training the mind to perceive reality without filters. The human mind filters everything. It labels, judges, categorizes, interprets. This filtering creates the illusion of a stable world. The Vedas sought to remove these filters, not permanently, but enough for a human being to glimpse reality as it is. This is why meditation was central, why silence was revered, why withdrawal from sensory excess was encouraged, not to escape the world, but to see it clearly. Why the Vedas speak in symbols. Instead of instructions, create obedience. Symbols create insight. A symbol cannot be memorized. It must be contemplated. Fire, water, sky, sacrifice, breath, light. These were not religious images. They were psychological maps. Each symbol pointed to an inner process. Fire was not fire. It was transformation. Water was not water. It was fluidity of awareness. Sacrifice was not violence. It was the surrender of ego. But over time, symbols became rituals. Rituals became traditions. Traditions lost their meaning, and the purpose was forgotten. The most radical idea in the Vedas. Here is the idea that truly sets the Vedas apart. You are not meant to believe in truth. You are meant to become aware of it. This single insight dissolves religion as we know it, because belief requires distance. Awareness requires presence. The Vedas were never asking for belief in gods. They were pointing toward a state of consciousness with a separation between observer and observed collapses. Why the Vedas never promised salvation. There is no concept of eternal heaven in the Vedas, no final judgment, no reward system. Why? Because the Vedas were not concerned with afterlife. They were concerned with clarity of perception, here and now. Suffering, they said, does not come from fate, it comes from ignorance. And ignorance is not a sin, it is a misunderstanding. The forgotten role of the Rishi Arishi was not a priest. He was not a teacher in the modern sense. He was an explorer of consciousness. Someone who had gone far enough inward to map the terrain of the mind. The Vedas are not his opinions. They are his field notes. Observations recorded not with ink but with sound and memory. Why modern Hinduism often misses the point. Over time, what was once inquiry became identity. What was once exploration became tradition. What was once inner science became outer ritual. This was not failure. It was inevitability. Every living tradition eventually hardens. But the Vedas themselves never hardened. They remain open-ended, unfinished, alive, waiting for inquiry to return. The Vedas were teaching freedom, not faith. Freedom from blind belief, inherited fear, unconscious living, borrowed identity. The freedom to observe reality directly, to see without distortion, to live without illusion. That was their true purpose. Why this matters today. More than ever, we live in an age of information overload. Opinions everywhere, beliefs clashing endlessly, yet clarity is rare. The Vedas offer something radical: silence, observation, self-inquiry. They do not compete with science, they complement it. They do not oppose reason, they refine it. They do not ask you to believe, they ask you to see. The Vedas do not say, "Here is God." They say, "Look carefully." They do not say, "Follow this path." They say, "Observe what is." They do not say, "Accept this truth." They say, "Discover it yourself." And that is why their purpose was forgotten, because they were never meant to be followed. They were meant to awaken something within you, something that does not belong to religion, something older than belief, something deeper than thought, awareness itself. And once that awakens, the Vedas are no longer needed, because you have become what they were pointing toward all along.